Providian Trust, a prominent New York bank, misplaced $50 billion. A special team of investigators have been brought in to determine what happened. The team is getting ready to present their findings. Let's listen in. Good afternoon. My name is Shanika Rains, Chief Prosecutor. We are here to present evidence of gross misconduct in the case of New York versus Providian Trust. We will begin with the Chief Integration Investigator.
Thank you, Detective Rains. Good afternoon. My name is Darlene Villarreal, Chief Integration Investigator. Successful projects should practice strong management skills and effective leadership skills. These skills can be gained through experience and practice. There is a lack of leadership within the Access Plus project. Stephen Walsh, who was a lawyer, stepped into the position of CEO at Providian Trust Company and did not have enough time to become fully involved in the project. Upon further investigation, Walsh took a laissez-faire approach in dealing with the Access Plus project and was content to allow Michael LeBlanc to take leadership. LeBlanc, a senior vice president, had no prior experience regarding project management, which created many issues throughout the project. LeBlanc considered himself bullheaded. This approach can be associated with an autocratic leadership style. He created tension among the steering committee when he did not include the senior vice president of corporate services. LeBlanc continued to use forceful and decisive management when working with his project team members. He failed to build rapport with his project team members and did not practice empathetic listening. For example, Peter Story, the internal auditor, argued that the Access Plus project was at high risk and could not be completed within the scheduled timeframe. LeBlanc and Walsh ignored Peter's concerns, and he was ultimately fired by Walsh. The lack of conflict management skills by LeBlanc caused conflict among the front and back offices that had a history of not cooperating with each other. He chose the back office to drive the project, which created a further divide between the offices. He then decided to assign Todd Benari, who hired his own project managers, to lead the Access Plus project. This did not improve the situation. It further distanced LeBlanc from responding to project issues and caused a discord with Providian's core business practices. Benari stated since he was part of the implementation committee, he was only responsible for 1/20th of the project, and never expressed his fears to Walsh regarding the success of the project. The project lacked the proper leadership that affected conflict resolution and building positive relationships among the project team members. If the project had a strong leadership, these issues might have not occurred. Thank you. Now I will turn it over to the Chief Communications Investigator.
Thank you, Detective Villarreal. Good afternoon. My name is Elisa Hausman, Chief Communications Officer. Communication is a key component for the success of any project, and without it, there is a greater chance for project failure. This seems to be a contributing factor to the current Providian Trust situation. It is important to note that in project management, it is considered best practice to maintain an issue log to document, monitor, and track issues that occur during the project. However, we were not supplied a log, and during our investigation, we discovered multiple undocumented complaints. There are 4 main complaints that illustrate communication breakdown in this project, and I will review them briefly. First, it is apparent that a communication plan was either not created or it was not followed by the team. Matt LeBlanc was the project leader for the Access Plus project. He was also a board member, the chair of the steering committee, and of the implementation committee. Mr. LeBlanc did not address the internal audit department's communication regarding their concerns with the project. He informed the committees that everything was just fine and right on schedule. Mr. LeBlanc's approach to communication was to just push everything through. Second, the board and committee members did not voice their concerns about the project to CEO Steve Walsh or to Mr. LeBlanc. They were afraid of being accused of corporate disloyalty. They also did not listen to the internal complaints and concerns from the staff regarding the project's workflow and design. Third, The Human Resource Department voiced concerns about the training schedule and how it might not be sufficient to implement the drastic changes the project was requiring of the staff. But this communication was also ignored, and Human Resources proceeded to take a laissez-faire approach to the project. They remained hands-off for the remainder of the project. Finally, there is a lack of communication regarding staff training and computer installation schedules. This is indicative that project monitoring and controlling functions were not in place or simply not followed. It is also apparent that the milestones for training and for computer deliverables were missed. Minimal training was provided. However, the staff was unable to practice what they had learned because they did not have desktop computers installed in their work areas. This lack of communication caused staff to not be able to perform their jobs. Now over to our Chief Quality Officer.
Thank you, Detective Houseman. Good afternoon. My name is Shannon Briones, Chief Quality Investigator. In addition to the problems in communication, Providian Trust demonstrated a breakdown in project risk and quality management. Risk management is vital in that it outlines risks identified in the planning phase with contingency plans for each risk encountered. Ross 2019. It is not evident a risk analysis or plan was followed considering the following facts. Lack of experience was evident with the project leader, Michael LeBlanc having no project manager experience. In addition, the operating department IT with 30 personnel was charged with the build and implementation of the project, yet they had never worked on a project that involved more than a $500,000 budget. Todd Benari, Vice President of Trust Operations, led the implementation of the project and reported directly to LeBlanc. Benari's updated project plan received negative response by the implementation committee and all vice presidents, yet the VP signed off on it. The Internal Audit Services report had many concerns outlined, with most items not near completion and many missed milestone deadlines. In addition to these risks, quality management was seemingly ignored. Quality management ensures the project satisfies the need it was intended to meet, thus resulting in a quality product and project success through client and customer satisfaction. McQuillan, 2016. Providian Trust did not create a formal change control process to ensure changes were made with forethought, albeit no date. The project team plan looked good on paper, but the team did not analyze the complete culture change of the implementation. One example is the trust officers with 30 years of experience had no computer knowledge, and many did not even have desktop computers by the summer of 1995. This, yet again, is another important aspect of training that was not accomplished. Although LeBlanc repeatedly stated implementation would not be contemplated if it was deemed an unnecessary risk to the business, the simulated work environment was not performed as defined by project quality management. The external audit report requested by Walsh noted concern that the new procedures did not focus on control-oriented processes. However, there was also no speculation made about the actual project status. There is no evidence either the internal or external audit report made it to Walsh's desk. Just as communication and client concerns were not addressed, risk and quality were not considered in the implementation of Access Plus. Thank you. I would now like to turn it over to Detective Flores.
Thank you, Detective Briones. Good afternoon. My name is Desiree Flores, Chief Resource Investigator. When managing a project of this magnitude, resource and vendor management is of paramount importance. According to the findings, Providian Trust seriously lacked in areas of resource and vendor management, leading to gross mismanagement of the project. Evidence shows that the risk identified by Peter Story and the Audit Services Department in the case state resources may be used inefficiently, impacting the success and schedule of processing. In response to this, project management stated they had reviewed the pros and cons of all implementations to date. However, pros and cons were not fully reviewed. As stated in the system license of Select 1, they would only provide a one-time training on all system functions with the train-the-trainer approach. The Implementation Committee reviewed and acknowledged a document with the section Influencing Factors and Assumptions that required that virtually all personnel at the company possess the skills required for the new software-based technology and applications. Although an outside firm was hired by Providian Trust to help trust officers study Microsoft software applications, The IT staff support were still installing personal computers, making it difficult to study daily for the new applications. It is suggested by McIsaac that vendor performance impact more than just project success, and these other areas affected include shareholders, taxpayers, customers, careers, organizations' reputations, and vendors. It was also reported in the audit report, our position may be jeopardized if there is any dispute with the vendor of Access Plus on the standard software functions, since we violate the contract in not testing the standard software. It is also noted in the investigation the resource-stimulated work environment testing was not carried out. Without thoroughly analyzing the system implementation through the use of testing the software, millions of dollars, jobs, and time of the investment may be a waste. Thank you. Now let's turn it back over to Chief Investigator Rains.
Thank you, Detective. That concludes our investigative reporting into the gross misconduct demonstrated by Providian Trust and leading to the $50 billion in lost assets. But Mr. Walsh, you are not listening to us or your employees. Yes, this is an $18 million project, but there are $50 billion at stake here. You claim to have an open door policy and want direct communications, yet you dismiss all concerns that were raised as being part of internal politics. You need to listen to everyone, especially the front and backroom personnel, not just the executives on the committees. Do not be so hasty to fire these veteran employees who know your clients as if they were family. They are the backbone of your company. Look and study the project plans, the work breakdown structures, the Gantt charts, all the necessary paperwork. Ensure that the training plans and the schedules covers all employees, and make sure that they have the necessary equipment and training to do their jobs. We urge you not to launch the Access Plus implementation. It will be a disaster.